Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast. Hey, thank you so much for joining me here today for a Friday edition episode. This is episode number 912, and it's great to have you here. Well, hey, if you are a lover of agriculture, well, then you have found your show, and I will tell you what, I'm a very happy person today to be bringing to you a relatively new agricultural podcaster. Jason Medows from Ag State of Mind is going to join us on the show today. We're going to be talking about mental health and agriculture, the origins of his podcast, his farming operation, his town job, and how life kind of all fits together there in South Central Missouri for him. And special thanks to him for reaching out and contacting me. It was great to meet him and to correspond with another agricultural podcaster. And hey, I know you're going to enjoy his show, and we strongly want to encourage you to go over and listen to Ag State of Mind as well. And I guarantee after this interview, that is exactly what you are going to want to do. So let's jump into that interview for you right now. Jason, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Yeah, Matt, thanks for having me, man. It's really cool to be on here with you after listening to your show for a long time. You're one of the influences behind the Ag State of Mind podcast. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share your platform here.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. That's super flattering for you to say that. And man, I've seen a lot online about your show. I like to talk about ag. It's a total selfish pursuit. What you're doing is God's work here, and bringing light to something that really needs to be talked about. And we want to get into all of that tonight, but I do appreciate you reaching out.
Yeah, thanks, man.
You bet. Well, let's do this. So introduce yourself to my audience for those of them that have not listened to you yet.
Sure. Well, my name's Jason Medows, and I'm from outside Cuba, Missouri, which if you're looking at a map of Missouri, it's about halfway between Springfield, Missouri and St. Louis, Missouri on Interstate 44. So about 100 miles from anything of any significance. I grew up on a cow-calf operation. My dad actually owned the local livestock market here. Actually, it's in just outside of Cuba. And he had at one time we had about 1,000 mama cows, which was a lot for South Central Missouri. And so I grew up in that life. I am third generation on the family farm. But in 2002, when I graduated high school, I went to college, went to pharmacy school in St. Louis, came back to the farm after I graduated in 2008, started working around here. But the whole time I wanted to somehow combine my expertise, my training in healthcare with my love for agriculture. I kept a herd of cows throughout college. My dad, he would feed them for me in the winter, and I'd trade work for him in the summer. It all worked out really well for us. But I wanted to give back to that community. And that's why I started the podcast. The podcast is called Ag State of Mind. And we started out talking about mental health and agriculture, which I'm sure, as most people know, is really a thing that's really hitting home for a lot of folks right now. Things are really tough right now. And add everything that's happened just now this year, it's just almost exponentially brought that into light. But so I did that in the summer of 2019 is when I started the podcast. And we started out really talking about mental health in agriculture, but I'm wanting to bring it as all health in agriculture now, mental health, physical health. We're going to start talking about nutrition, all these things. And the basic thing is what I'm trying to do is make sure the people who feed us are healthy themselves. You know what I mean? At whatever level that may be. And it's been a really fun process for me. It's a lot of learning involved, but really getting to meet a lot of great people in this space. And I'm really thankful that I came in at the time I did, because I feel like it was really timely, and I feel like it was when it was supposed to happen.
Okay. Well, that's great. And tell us about family. I've seen pictures on
Yeah, of
Facebook.
course. Yeah. I have a wife, Carrie. We've been married. We were just having this argument tonight, and I think I was right for once. How long we've been married? We've been married 11 years. She thought it was 12. That kind of probably speaks to how hard I am to deal with sometimes, that
Yeah.
she thinks it's longer than it is. We've got 4 boys. We've got our oldest is almost 16. We have twins that are almost 10, and then our baby is 7. So 4 boys, and it's just a madhouse around here most of the time.
Okay. Well, what led you away from agriculture to pharmacy school in the first place?
So this is a good question. I haven't talked about this a whole lot. My dad never really encouraged. He knew I wanted to be back, but he wanted me to have a job away from agriculture. And I think at the time he had just gotten out of the sale barn. It wasn't something that he saw as a long-term option for me as far as a steady income. And I did really well in school, and I always enjoyed math and science. And we had a family business. My brother-in-law actually owned the local pharmacy here in town, so I worked there through high school too. Delivering medicine and after school and stuff. And it was just kind of an easy fit. And I asked Dad. I failed my first test when I was in college. It was a calculus test, and okay. I failed it. Yeah. And I remember sitting there, and I called home. I was, on the verge of tears. Like, I never failed anything ever, and that was just kind of a punch in the mouth. As soon as let me back up here. Not only did I go away to college, but I moved from our farm here outside, 10 miles outside of a small town, to downtown St. Louis.
Whoa.
So yeah, culture shock. So, I was dealing with that, plus dealing with school being super hard. And I was just so stressed out. I remember and calling home and telling Dad, this is not for me. I don't know if I can make it here in the city. And I remember him just like, he said, that's great. He asked me what I wanted to do. What's my plan after that? And I said, I'd really like to just come home and work the farm with you. Mm-hmm. And he said, that's great. And you can do that one day, but you're already in school. You have already started your track to a degree. Just stick with it. Mm-hmm. And 6 years later, I was fine. I had my PharmD, and it was hard, but I never thought about quitting after that day. He just mm-hmm. He really encouraged me to get out and, broaden my horizons. And I'm thankful for that, because if it wasn't for healthcare, if it wasn't for going to pharmacy school, I wouldn't have met my wife mm-hmm. because she's a nurse. Our first jobs were in the same hospital together. So it was really a blessing to me to go ahead and, have the life I have now. I wouldn't change anything, but yeah, I think about that often. Like, what would my life have been like if I would have just stayed primarily in agriculture? And, I don't know, but I know it would have been different. And I don't think I would have changed anything.
That's interesting. Okay. So, as a inside baseball stuff here, when it comes to podcasting, obviously, when I get to speak with a fellow podcaster, especially one in agriculture, we share a lot of things in common just by default. And I remember when I decided to start my show, there was kind of this bolt of lightning, kind of this inspiration. Was it the same for you? Was there an incident or an event or something like that where you said, okay, I got to share this with the rest of the world?
Yes. Okay. Something I didn't say when I started here was, throughout college, throughout a lot of my early adulthood, I struggled with my mental health too. I struggled with anxiety, slipping into depression from time to time. And I didn't have a great way to deal with it for a long time, but I got better. I found ways to deal with it. I started going to counseling. I started exercising more, started taking better care of myself, and I'd gotten really better. And when I realized that I had to share, when I had to help other people like me out, was in July of 2019. My wife and I were at a conference in Dallas, Texas. Carrie had flown down. She drove down. I flew down a day later to meet her and just hang out with her in the evening. Well, it was a wet summer, and we would have all our hay up at that point, but we didn't. It was after our county fair where all our kids were showing. So the kids were all at home. I wouldn't have went on that trip if we still had the fair animals at home. So I think that's why I always mention that. So, but we were gone, and my 15-year-old son, well, he was 14 then, I guess, and my 80-year-old dad were putting up hay. We had just the last little bit of hay to put up. Normally that's my deal. I'm in charge of that. We get that done. But I said, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go away. I'm going to spend a weekend with my wife, and just kind of get away from everything. Well, I get a call, and sitting in a hotel room in Dallas, and Levi calls me. Levi's our oldest son, and he says our baler's on fire. Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, like, of course it is, because I decided to leave when we have all this day going on, because I'm not there. And my initial reaction was to freak out. Right. And, I wanted to drive back home, which was stupid. I mean, obviously thinking, but that would never have been a great solution. But I remember being able to tell my brothers were here, and they drove over, they saw the smoke, and they drove over from their place. And we lost a tractor and a baler out of the deal, but nobody was hurt. Thankfully, my son was the one who was on the baler, not my dad, who's has health issues and everything else. And after all the kind of dust had settled around that, I had realized how well I had improved myself into where I didn't freak out, I didn't lose it, and I didn't yell or make it a terrible thing. And I said, man, if I can get better, there's sure I can surely help other people get better. And that's when I just, on that long drive home, Carrie and I were talking about it. I said, why don't I start a podcast? That seems like a good way to get out. I had no idea what it took to start a podcast. I had no idea. Zero. I didn't know what Zoom was. I didn't know what Audacity was. I didn't know how you would record a podcast and submit it, all these things. But I knew it was something I wanted to do. And I felt obligated, and I felt kind of almost of a calling to do this. And here we are a little over a year later, and it's just been, I still am no expert, but it was amazing how you put your mind to something, and then it just kind of, you work a little bit at a time, and then it just kind of comes to fruition. Right.
Yeah, man, that is quite a story. And actually that's interesting because, we're in this space, and so we're out there on social media. We're trying to get our message out to people. And I saw one posted from you the other day of somebody else's tractor that had burned up. You posted that and shared that. And but obviously you got very personal experience with that. Well, I'm glad nobody was hurt. This happens. I mean, it happens frequently. And I guess it probably frames things into perspective for you, right? Nobody was hurt. There's a financial loss, but at the end of the day, everybody's still there and everybody's still going on together. Right.
Yeah. I mean, when it's something as hard as that, and we can kind of come and realize that nothing was lost that wasn't replaceable.
Right.
That really was, I think, the thing that really stuck in my mind from that event, and we all learned from it. And that's good. I mean, it was a hard lesson to learn, but hopefully it's something that we can, well, obviously it was something we built on.
And so when you're on that drive home with Carrie and you're talking about this and you're talking about starting a podcast, are you already intimately aware of I don't know what to call it, the rash of farmer suicides we'd been having over the last 2 or 3 years at that point in 2019?
I'm not sure I was aware, but I didn't understand the magnitude, I don't think, as much as obviously I do now. And what I would learn a few months later, I would have, because that was my issue. It's like, man, what if I run out of stuff to talk about? And obviously, unfortunately, that's not the case. It was something that was sorely needed. And I mean, I was obviously aware, or else I wouldn't have started that, but I did not know how bad the conversation needed to be had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. So when you launched and you start talking about mental health in agriculture and farming, and I'm sitting here going, it's kind of a taboo. I mean, farmers
Mm-hmm.
are independent, they're tough guys. It's a bit of a taboo. What kind of response do you get when you launch?
It was overwhelmingly positive. There was a little kickback and from people around me. Obviously I don't want to name any names, but that was hard to swallow at first. But, at first it was hard, but then I kind of got to realize that, if somebody's kicking back at you, you're probably doing something right.
Yeah.
You're probably pushing some buttons that needed to be pushed. And I kind of took it as motivation. But then after that, it was overwhelmingly positive. Everybody I spoke to was like, this is great. This is something that needs to happen. And I felt like a lot of people wanted it to happen, but they didn't really know how to make it happen. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I necessarily knew how to make it happen either. I just did it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's the way a lot of things happen sometimes, is you just do it. And you'd be amazed at what happens when you just try something.
Yeah, people appreciate it when somebody puts themselves out there. They take a
Yeah.
risk. They talk about something that is, it's risky. I mean, your topic in general is a little bit risky. And of course, you're exposing yourself and things that most people keep private. And people appreciate that, and it resonates with people. There's a lot of sincerity in what you're doing because it's a difficult thing for people to talk about.
Yeah, I think so. And I appreciate that too, because, I don't want it to become off as fake or as disingenuous. And I've prided myself on that, on it being a real intimate conversation with people and just real talk. And it's been amazing, the response and people reaching out. And
Mm-hmm.
I talked to one person, they tell me, oh, you got to talk to two more people, and then it
Mm-hmm.
just builds from there. And it's amazing, the network that has grown around it.
Yeah. Now, are you? So, tell everybody the release schedule for your show and the format. Interviews versus solo, that type of stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So I try. No, I don't try. I do. I need to quit saying trying, because this is the way it's been going on for a year now, and I've yet to break it yet. I release an episode every Sunday night. It actually, I promote it on Monday, so it's ready for everybody to listen to first thing Monday morning. And we talk most of the time. It's a one-on-one conversation with somebody either involved in agriculture, involved in the mental health or self-help space,
Mm-hmm.
or a combination of the two. And I'm talking to a lot of people from like state extension,
Okay.
land grant extension. First person I talked to in that space was Susan Harris from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. I've talked to a lot of dairy farmers, because we
Yeah.
know how things are in dairy.
Absolutely.
I mean, I had no idea that's something, and that's something I have learned. The part of agriculture that I probably knew the least about, and now I know almost, not the most, but a lot more than I
Sure.
did, was dairy. I have learned so much about the dairy industry and how it works, the ins and outs, and the stresses that they face. And so I try to have 45 minute to an hour conversations with these
Mm-hmm.
folks, and we talk about their farms, and then we talk about what's going on, what some of the stresses they've had, and then a lot of times the stresses that they've overcome, and how they've helped themselves and they've helped others. And it's really fascinating how many people are actually in this space and actually are ready to talk about it. And it's really a cool conversation to have people just kind of, I don't know, be able to share their story with you and
Mm-hmm.
have that platform for them. It's really incredible.
That's great. Well, good for you for doing that. And tell us about your agricultural life. So you mentioned the boys showing animals for 4-H and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What does your farming / agricultural life look like today?
So I have a cow calf operation. Our part of it is about 100 and on any given part of the year, 120 to 150 head, just depending on how many heifers we keep for backgrounding. We calve twice a year in the spring and fall. I've moved my spring calving date back to around April to kind of avoid these harsh, muddy Missouri winters, which is awful. I'd rather have the frozen ground calving on than the mud.
Same here.
Recently, used to, and that's something else we've kind of changed here a little bit. My dad just ran a bull with cows year round, still does. My brother, same way. They all did that. And I found out it was much easier on me having a town job to come home to a herd that I knew was or wasn't calving, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it made so much more sense and made me kind of be able to plan things a little bit better. And then you have that uniform set of calves to sell at the end of the year, or whenever it may be. And it's just that's been one of the best things I've done. One of the other things that I've done that I have changed from what traditionally we've done is keeping all of our own heifers. We never did that. My dad never kept heifers. Being a sale barn guy, he found the cows at the best value, purchased them. I don't have the time for that. I don't like to sit in a sale barn. I like to actually spend the time with the cows, and I enjoy the heifer development. That's probably my favorite part of it. My favorite part of everything we do is the heifer development. And we keep every single heifer that we raise. We give every one of them a chance to breed. The ones that breed stay, the ones that don't go. It's been a really great way for us to add value to our heifer calves.
Okay. That's interesting. Why do you have 2 calving seasons? That's something I don't do, and actually it's something I'm not familiar with. Why do you do it that way?
A lot of people do it here, and mostly it's to get the more out of my bull battery.
Okay.
I can typically get, I can run with that 150 cows. I can run about 3 bulls.
Okay.
Plus then also my heifer. I have the 1 bull specifically for heifer bulls, or I'm sorry, heifer, breeding heifers. Why? I mean, that's the only reason I can see to do it. I guess it would probably, now we're talking here and you're really kind of putting me to it here. I mean, it probably honestly would make more sense to have 1 calving, but also another reason is maybe hedging your bets a little too, catching a market at a better time. And one of the things in Missouri that we're very fortunate for is winter grazing. We're in the fescue belt. We're in south central Missouri, where we stockpile fescue for, that will be of really good protein value until about February.
Okay.
Now I can't get into the specifics here because I don't know them off the top of my head without looking at a NRCS book from Missouri, but it's really good. We have really good winter feeds. So with that being said, we can take these calves into the winter and they'll grow more, and being supplemented with that grass and also with their mother's milk. So it's just a way to kind of use the resources that we have efficiently.
Okay. Well, it doesn't sound like a bad idea to me. I like the idea of it. You can use less bulls over more cows, and you do hedge your bets. I mean, fall calving's a legit deal. That I like the sound of that. It got me thinking about doing that. I got you thinking about going one way, and you got me thinking about going the other.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, the simplicity, it's a little more complex. I'll agree that it's more complex to have 2 calving seasons. I do like the 2 paychecks, though. The 2 different paychecks at 2 different times a year. I have farm payments due twice a year. So, I mean, that helps with that, with cash flow and everything else. I mean, that's all part of a business, right? So those things are all things to consider.
Now, do you still have the town job?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do. I actually work 40 hours a week as a pharmacist at a local hospital. So, I mean, I am very blessed in my job though, and I have a great schedule. I work from 7 to 3:30 Monday through Friday.
Okay.
So, if you're going to have a farm and have a town job, I could not think of a better situation than I have right now. And that's probably one of the things that makes me keep the town job. Gotcha. Because I mean, the summertime, I can get home. I work 30 minutes from, I get home 4:00. Shoot, it doesn't get dark till after 9.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've got almost a full day's work there waiting for me. So, I mean, summertime, it's great. Now, wintertime, I mean, you get about an hour of daylight, but it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
We have spotlights too,
Yeah, that's right. And it sounds like you've got the support structure as well. You've got your family, your brothers, and then you've got your boys and your wife to help you out with that as well.
Yeah, my boys. I mean, the boys are the big thing right now. In fact, I did not understand how much Levi, our oldest, helped us out until this about 10 weeks ago. He broke his leg. Broke his leg at football practice. Mm-hmm. The first week, the Monday before their first Friday night game, and I've had to do everything. I mean, the little things like hooking up the trailer, or going down to feed the calves down in the lot, that sort of thing. Just the little things that I didn't realize took up as much time as they did, and they really do. And it's good because it helps me not take him for granted.
Yeah, that's great. I've got my daughter who is just taking over more and more responsibility all the time, and man, I've turned over everything to do with our pigs to her, and just the other day I was sitting there going, "Oh, this is pretty nice." I just say, "This is your responsibility," and it's one less thing I got to worry about. It's kind of cool. Now I understand why farmers back in my grandparents' generation had so many kids. It's pretty nice.
Just have kids, yeah. I totally understand.
Well, so where do you want to take all this? I mean, obviously you've got your mission with Ag State of Mind, and that in and of itself is very, very worthy, and there need not be anything else associated with it. But you've got a lot going on. You're a dad. Yeah. You're a husband. You got your farm. You got your town job, which is no small job. A lot of knowledge required there, a lot of brain power, and you got to be careful. And then, of course, you've got the podcast, and once a week, if you've never done it, that's a load. It takes a lot to get that done. So, where do you want this all to go?
So, I try to compartmentalize my life as much as possible. And, podcast things are podcast things, farm things are farm things, family, town job things they're all their own separate things. So I try to keep everything within the boundaries as much as possible. Now, I understand. So my big thing here and I think the place I want to see the growth the most is in my farm. And in the management of our land is the big thing here. A guy I admire a lot, Bert Teichert, said one time, he said he thought he thought that he liked his cows, but then he realized that to have good cows, you got to have good grass. So he started to love his grass, but then he had to understand to love his grass, he had to love his soil. So, it's all these things coming together. So becoming a better steward of the land is something that I am very, very interested in, and I think is really important for us to pass down to the generations and leave it a little bit better than we found it. So I'm really trying to get into more regenerative practices with grazing. Trying to add, my goal this year is to integrate sheep for the first time.
Okay.
Something I really want to do. I'm really interested in Katahdin hair sheep.
Uh-huh.
I think they work really well for this part of the country. So that's my first step in trying to diversify a little more here on our farm operation. Maybe it's not something I try it and it's not something that I like. I don't know. But you're either growing or you're dying, right? And that's where I want to go with this. I want to try something new. And everyone here likes sheep. One of my boys shows one of the twins shows sheep at the fair, and we really fell in love with him. So having a herd of our own is something I'm really looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So do you, as you look forward, and you look like a young man, how old are you?
I'm 36.
36. Okay.
Yeah.
So as you look forward, obviously you've got a stage of life right now. You're raising the family, and then there'll be a new stage, and it all progresses. But as you look forward, do you see yourself continuing with all of these things at some point? Do you want to come home full time to the farm? Is that even a possibility? Do you want to retire from the pharmacist position before that happens? I mean, how do you kind of, as you look forward, how do you see that all playing out?
So I see me staying here. I see me staying in this stage of life as long as my kids are home. Our Boone is, how old is he? 7. So he'll be home another 10, 11 years before he's gone. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, right? So, I'll be in this space for at least another 10 years. So, but still, when that's over, I'm 46. In my eyes, I'm relatively young. Yeah. 46 is younger and younger all the time. And so at that point, that's where I look to. I don't know if I want to totally do away with my town job, because there are parts of it that really afford me a nice lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And by that, I mean, I'm not rich. I'll never say that I'm rich, but I'm also a long ways from poor. And my wife, one of the things we love to do together is travel. Mm-hmm. And having that part of our lives and being able to travel, not all the time, but getting to take time away, that's something that's really important to me. And I know my town job affords me that luxury, mm-hmm. From time to time. And that's going to be something that I'll have to really, really see how that all plays out, because when you give that up, when you give that security up, there's a lot of things with the lifestyle that you currently have that go away with it, right? And I have to really examine on what that looks like. Now, maybe it looks like me taking a day or 2 a week less at the pharmacy, okay, and bringing that home. And, that's fine too, because have you ever read the book Quitter by John A. Cuff?
Absolutely. Great book.
Yeah, it's a great book. I read it last year while we were on vacation, obviously. And, he talks about that it's important for you to like the job that you currently have, even if it isn't your dream job. And when I say dream job, it's what I think a lot of people think of is working this farm, doing this, not mm-hmm. having to be somewhere X hours to Y hours. But it's also really important. And you have to realize how fortunate you are to have a job you like, because there's a lot of people that don't have that. And I'm very fortunate. I'm fortunate to have a job that gives me the freedom to be here on the farm as much as I can be, and much as I am actually. I think that was one of my biggest issues with going to pharmacy school, was the fact that I was going to have terrible hours. Most mm-hmm. pharmacists work 9 to 6. Okay. Worst hours in the world, I feel like. Work weekends. I don't have any of that right now, nor do I ever anticipate ever having that. So even if everything stayed the way that it stayed right now, and I still worked 40 hours a week as a pharmacist, I still got a lot of time left in the week to run a farm. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, the fact that I am blessed is not lost upon me. Sure. I feel very fortunate. But if it is something that works out for me, where I can leave that job behind and come to work on a farm full time, then yes, I absolutely want to do that. And that's something I'm definitely looking as a possibility, because mm-hmm. that's the life I want. But at the same time, if it doesn't happen, I am in a good position to. And I think
Yeah.
it's important when people take or wanting to take that step, because I know you chat with a lot of people about this on your podcast, Matt. And I think it's important. And you alluded to it in your episode I listened to just yesterday. And you have, it's a whole concept. Life, you just can't be just laser focused all the time just on this one thing. You have to pay attention to all the things in your life. And me being on a farm would be great, but would it be great if it took away from the relationship with my family and with my wife? Obviously not. We need to make sure all that stuff is taken care of.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So,
yeah, that's interesting. Well, good for you. You're in an enviable position because you're not feeling pressure to make something happen, because when you're waking up in the morning and it's time to go into town for the job, that's not causing you distress. And that is an enviable position, because I think you can make better decisions possibly under those circumstances, because you're not in a hurry, you're not miserable, that type of thing. And so, yeah, that's a very fortuitous position, and I'm happy for you regarding that. Tell me about the future of Ag State of Mind. So at the outset, you said that you're branching out, not away from, but including other aspects of farmer health. So have you started that already? And
yes.
Okay, tell me about that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. So tell me about that and how that's going.
So yeah, I mean, when I first started out here, I thought mental health, it's all mental health. We don't talk about anything else. I kind of had the blinders on. But when I got very early on, I realized that health is an all-encompassing term. My goal is for mental health to not even be a thing anymore. We just talk about it in the same breath that we talk about physical, emotional, spiritual health, all that being interconnected and one feeding off of the other, because that's really how it happens. And so actually just this week, I sent out a tweet talking that I want to talk about to one registered dietitian about a healthy lifestyle, how it affects our mental health. And then I wanted to talk about the role of meat in a healthy diet, because I think there's a lot, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of misinformation out there about the effects of meat in a diet. And we all know that meat is a very important part of a healthy diet. And I want to kind of reiterate that through my own lens. And you wouldn't believe the response within 30 minutes of all these registered dietitians messaging me and wanting to talk. And so I'm just going to have a whole series at the first of the year where we're talking to not just registered dietitians, but nutrition specialists. I think she doesn't know it yet. This is the first time I've told anybody yet, but I'm going to talk to my wife about it, because she's kind of specializes in that as well, in nutrition management around fitness and such. So, yeah, I mean, that's just the first part I'm going to branch out in. I would love to have a whole series on fitness soon, because that's a super important part of my life. I run a ton. We're getting ready to run a half marathon here in the next, I guess, on Halloween. So, yeah, and I always tell people that's the thing I've done for myself that has been the greatest help to my own mental health is taking a rigorous exercise schedule. And that's been a game changer for me. And I want everybody to, exercise like that isn't for everybody. I understand that. I mean, there's a lot of sacrifice that's involved. I wake up at 4:00 every morning to make sure we're good enough time to work out. And, I understand that's not for everybody. But I think it's important to keep our bodies moving. And a lot of agriculture is really hard work. But a lot of it also is sitting in a tractor cab.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, just making sure you take that time for yourself. If it's important and if it's something that's going to improve your health, it's important to take the time for that.
Absolutely. How do you, when you're looking forward to this, and I'm sitting here kind of anticipating, what your responses are going to be. How will you deal with the folks that say, I'm a farmer? There is not time for that in the day.
I like this question because I get this one a lot. So what do you do to a tractor to make sure it's working right?
Maintenance. Check
the oil. You make sure the tires got enough air. You check the hydraulic oil, all those things,
Mm-hmm.
Why are you any different? Why is the farmer any different?
I agree.
Farmers have to start seeing themselves as assets. They have to start treating themselves like they would treat their livestock, like they would treat their tractor. Now, they don't baby them, right? They don't take all the time and they don't spend 24 hours with a cow calving, or they don't spend 12 hours at a time changing the oil on a tractor. But you do spend some time. Mm-hmm. And you do that you have to have that same frame of mind to your own health. And I think that's really important for people to see that when they start, and I told her I'm going to give her credit for saying this until I forget she said, and then I'm going to take the credit for it. And that's my friend Adrienne DeSutter. She explained it to me that farmers have to start seeing themselves as an asset and treating themselves like one. Because they're the ultimate asset to their operations.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And that is very true, by the way. Very true. Well, man, Jason, this is really exciting. I have been saying it for years on the show. We need more people in this space. We need more agricultural podcasters. And, man, other than over-the-road truck drivers, people who drive a truck for a living, I don't know of any demographic that is more suited for podcasts than farmers, because they're always doing something where they can be consuming this content, and we've just been starved for good agricultural podcasters. So I'm so happy that you're out there. Great to add you to the list. That is wonderful.
Well, I appreciate it. And you're right, man. Like, there's nobody, like you said, besides over the road truckers. I mean, there's nobody that has that time, that space to fill like farmers. I mean, I know for me, when we were having a lot of tractor cab time, I mean, it's almost used to, it was kind of a chore for me, right? But now that I've gotten to listening to podcasts, like, man, it's fun. Like, now I enjoy it. Like, oh man, we got to mow that, 50 acres. Well, I got a whole set of podcasts lined up to listen to. So, it's great.
Yeah, it's really been a game changer for me too. That is great. Well, Jason, how can people contact you? How can they find you? How can they listen to Ag State of Mind?
Sure. Well, to find me, I'm across all social media. Well, not all, but the three main ones are Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Ag State of Mind. I have a website, agstateofmind.com. I write blogs from time to time. That's not been happening much lately because I've just really been focused on the podcast. You can find the podcast wherever you get most of your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. I am a part of the Global Ag Network, so that's kind of my home base for the podcast, Global Ag Network / Ag State of Mind with Jason Medows. So a lot of places to find me, Matt, and I think that's cool.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you for what you're doing, by the way, and for sharing your story and your message with everyone.
Yeah, Matt, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Like I said, you've been an influence to me, and I feel very humbled and honored that you asked me to be here today.
Well, hey, thank you for being here, everybody, and thank you to Jason Medows for coming on and sharing his story and his podcast with us here on the Off-Farm Income Podcast. Make sure you go check it out. It is Ag State of Mind, and you can find it anywhere you can find the Off-Farm Income Podcast. I am sure they are both in all the same spots. And hey, everybody, as always, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.